Good morning. Good morning, Roger and Joanne.
Hey, Leroy.
Hi, Roger.
Oh, can't hear you. Are you muted?
Um,
I can hear him.
huh. I can hear you. I think my mic is working. Maybe you need headphones?
Yep, still not hearing you.
Huh.
I can hear both of you.
Can you hear Joanne?
Hmm.
You might need a microphone. Headphone?
There. I heard you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Did you do something different?
No,
Oh, okay.
I pulled the headphone out, or the earphones out of my head.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, that's good.
Good morning, John.
Hello, Roy. Hi, Roger.
Hi, John.
Hey, Don.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Heidi. Can you? Who's?
The business is still really busy.
That's pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
We have an antiseptic wipe company, a toilet paper company, and other companies that are having increased demand.
I hear exercise bike stock has gone up substantially.
Yeah. I know several people that have ordered those.
I've been trying for a month to buy a rowing machine, and they're out of stock and not being made anywhere.
Oh, wow. I've got a little oxygen machine in the background. Maybe I should mute myself.
I can't hear it.
I have a space heater.
Oh, wow.
I have just darkness. I can't believe my image here is lit by my living room window. It is so dark out right now.
Really?
It's really stormy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Kind of sunny here in Rhode Island.
Okay.
I just went for a little, there's some cool pathways. It's a very bikeable area. And I just discovered an area where you can go on take the pathway to the end, go on the beach, go around this point, and then hook up with another back pathway. And it's kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
What city are you in?
North Kingstown.
Okay.
They're also in the process of removing a missile silo from an old naval base, which that's kind of cool.
Okay.
Hey, Robert.
Morning.
Rob?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Morning. My connection's a little iffy, so if you're having trouble hearing me, let me know. Not sure what's going on, but
Okay.
Get that all the time.
Okay.
All right. Well, shall we just launch right into it and make this short and sweet, or long and sweet, whatever you guys, whatever's needed?
Sounds good.
I started to throw an agenda down, but I don't have it in front of me. So what would you like to talk about first?
Well, a short topic might be the solar home tour, because I think the only option we're going to have for October would be a virtual solar home tour. But I don't know if we've actually discussed that and kind of decided that's a good way to go. Now, related to that, I think we're kind of assuming that these Michigan solar study recordings on Zoom, along with maybe like the video that was done for Roger, or maybe other videos that home TV might do, would be basically the substance of the virtual solar home tour. There's still the issue for me of, well, that's just a kind of an open question, is that what do people think about doing that? And then there's the issue of, I'm not sure exactly what's the best place to kind of host this material, and so that's to me an open question. Now, just so everybody remembers, this is part of the ACES National Solar Home Tour, which is the first weekend in October. And I think the way ACES is going to, and probably almost everybody, there's not going to be many in-person tours. There's going to be either canceled tours or maybe virtual tours.
Hi, Joelle.
Hi, everybody. I never know if I'm going to get on. I have had some good luck and some not so good luck, but it worked last night, and today it worked, so we're good.
All right.
Looking good.
So I ran this idea by Brandy at Home TV, and their budget has been cut in half, and so they are kind of strapped. So the more we can feed them, and the more it relates to Meridian, the more likely they are to pick up on a story. But she seemed very optimistic, and she was excited about the possibility. The fact that we have some video that we can draw on is great. And I could ask her what would be helpful for the next step. And it's nice to have a little lead time. But I'm optimistic that they might be able to help in some way. But whether we produce it, there's a lot of variables. I'm just cautiously optimistic that they can be helpful.
Touch on this. This relates to the this relates to the whole Michigan Solar Story Series 2, Leroy. I was wondering if Home TV and you could do a short video or a PowerPoint, if a video isn't possible, on the township's 20 kilowatt system.
I think Leroy's muted, looks like.
Roy, you're muted.
Yeah, sometimes
There you
sometimes my space bar works, sometimes it doesn't. But anywho, I can check with the Home TV about that. I like that idea, and that would also reinforce point number 1 about relating to the Meridian Township. The fact that the first 3 tours have been in Meridian, I don't know what's planned for number 4, but it's just something that would be perfect for them to pick up on.
And
Roy,
I could probably help get footage too.
Is there a logical place to kind of host these recordings?
Well, Brandy also indicated that she would be willing to put those, the videos that we sent her. You sent me the first one. Not sure I got the second one yet, but yep, that we could host those on Home TV. I haven't heard back though, and it's just, so I'm glad you're reminding me to check in on her and after we're done, I'll send her an email with maybe an update on this conversation.
I like the idea of using our My Solar Stories for the Solar Home Tour Day. I'm not sure that I would do anything different for a Solar Home Tour video than what I would have already done by then with the My Solar Story videos that we'll have anyway. So if we could string those together and host them in Meridian Township, I think that'd make a really nice day for the Solar Home Tour.
Yeah, and if Home TV needs help getting like aerial footage or something, I mean, we have that drone we use that has 4K video. So, you know, if there were any like the front of the town hall, we could get some aerial stuff. I don't know what their capacity is now that their budget's cut, because I know they had their own sort of drone. But yeah, I mean, if they do need some good videos, you know, I'd be happy to fly that and get some videos, send it to them. As far as where to host it, I'm not exactly sure what platform you do it on, but good question.
They have a YouTube channel and they can upload a video. But things that come to mind are maybe coming up with an intro and an outro and just sort of transitions between the segments. And they can do that, or we can probably help with some sort of scripting. But knowing that there's other footage available is great. And this will all be helpful for the conversation with Brandy. Any other thoughts?
John, do you know how many of the Michigan or My Solar Home Tour sessions it will have by the time it wraps up in June?
Well, you know, we potentially have 3 from you, right? And there's mine and David Arnosti, which is tonight, and then there's potentially Heidi too down the road, and also potentially the 20 kilowatt system at the Township Hall. And so that's without even looking into other possible presentations, but that's right already, what, 6 or 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Joe in your neighborhood as well, John. I'm sure he would be more than happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, he'd be great.
How was participation so far?
Oh, in the solar story, let's see, the first presentation was 24, and the second one was 16. And
That's fantastic.
you know, so far the format seems to be working okay, because I thought we had a pretty good discussion and questions. You know, actually, just last night, Roger, I got a compliment on your presentation last week about how you had done such a thorough job, and then we had such a good discussion.
That reminds me that we also have footage from Rogers from Home TV earlier. We draw on. So this is great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll keep you posted, and maybe copy you guys on the email if you want to add anything, and hopefully Brandy or Andrea will get back with us. Andrea is sort of the assistant. She does a lot of the work. Brandy's the coordinator, and then they have interns that, and a couple other technical staff on hand that. But I appreciate the offer, Rob, for additional footage, and it's just exciting to see this come together. What a great idea, and how timely with this whole COVID situation.
I ask a question just for general knowledge. So, you know, I get like, you know, purchases are cut, right, in budget, but I don't totally understand, like you're saying the home TV budget is cut. Does that mean they're not able to work as much? Because they don't have extra expenditures, do they, for the, you know, doing home TV, do they so much? Or are their hours being cut budget-wise? What can
They
you not say?
they reorganized and they basically Deb Guthrie, who'd been there for 20 years, her position was eliminated. She's running for clerk and has her own consulting business.
Did that happen before COVID or?
Yeah. This happened
Okay.
last year, or
Okay.
yeah.
So
So
maybe you mentioned that before. I just can't remember.
and then they consolidated a couple of their technical positions. So last year, on the previous years, I was approached pretty much monthly for story ideas, and we'd have people covering things all the time. Now I've got to write my own frickin' press releases, and it's I'm competing with 8 other departments, so it's just not
So
as
they
much
have
of a
less
priority.
people. So that's where their budget is cut, as they've cut down on people, staff incomes.
Yeah, at least a couple of full timers, and but they are responsive if something, like I mentioned, if it's really related to Meridian Township, if it's timely, if it's exciting, and if there's a little bit of interest from the board as well, or if it relates to something like the climate action plan or the master plan. I mean, the more we can relate it to the township relevancy, the easier it is to make headway. So, and this fits really well. So
Okay.
the work you guys are doing with My Solar Stories is just a great setup. So I'm really optimistic about something in October. And if we're working on it now, that's great.
Yes, maybe after the lockdown's not quite so locked down, if people could get their little house tour and whatever tour done ahead of time, people could start watching in October or whenever you want to post it.
Yeah, maybe it could be open for 2 weeks where you could view it or something like that, as opposed to just being, 3 hours or something like that.
Right.
Good idea. So mine end up getting, more views because you have that flexibility, when people can actually do it.
Well, and the other possibility too is we could, encourage people to, you could, even though you don't want necessarily personal contact, people could do drive-bys of quite a few of the systems. So that could be facilitated if the owners are agreeable. Is just basically giving people different addresses, then they could, if after seeing the presentation, they could kind of physically go out and drive by and check it out.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, appreciate the conversation, everybody. The reason I haven't been tuning in on Thursday nights is because I do an open mic at 8, and I'm kind of distracted before that. But I appreciate the updates on that. And if Roger, did you send me the video from yours?
No, but I think John might have. I don't have it because John's been hosting. I mean, I don't have it separately.
I did forward it to you, Leroy, a while back.
Okay.
Well, actually, after his presentation. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check my notes again.
If I didn't, or you can't find it, just send me a note.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Anything else on that?
Hey, Leroy,
Yeah.
why don't you give everybody a short update on the Environmental Commission meeting, specifically as it relates to the EV ready ordinance?
Okay. Actually, John gave a nice presentation at our last meeting, early May. We meet on the first Wednesday of the month. And as you may recall, that we East Lansing has developed a ordinance which requires one's, I think for new developments, it's one space per 50 parking spaces that has a charger. And Rose, who's on the Environmental Commission now, Rose Vadnais, I think that's how you pronounce it, was involved with actually with some of that development of that maybe a couple years ago. So that was sort of timely. And then so there's interest in moving that, sharing that with the Planning Commission, but there's also interest in generally green building codes and ordinances, and sort of rather than piecemeal, suggest EV, suggest whatever other green technology, the idea is to set up a little committee that will discuss a green building recommendation to the Planning Commission. So maybe, was that committee meeting set up yet, John?
Well, no, I'm expecting you or Rose would do that since Rose is the chair.
Okay.
You
But
may
the
want to, whenever it's convenient, kind of remind her or something, because, it'd be nice to have one meeting before our next Environmental Commission meeting.
Great idea. I'll be back in the office next week too, so yeah, good idea. So anyway, that committee will come up with a sort of look at other green building codes, and Rose is forward to what East Lansing has done. And as you know from our climate action plan, we often follow East Lansing's lead. They use their template, and hopefully we will be able to not reinvent the wheel, but build on what they've done for Meridian.
Right.
So anyway,
We
do
have
you want
an
to add anything?
opportunity here. Oh, sorry, Lori.
No, I was going to say, do you want to add anything?
I was just
I
going to
do.
mention, we have kind of an opportunity here because I volunteered to be on this green building committee, as did our new student and member, and also Bill McConnell. Bill McConnell being, helpful because he's in the Planning Commission now. And so we have this committee of 4 or 5 of us that's going to be talking about this, which obviously our energy team can have input in too, but it's nice to have a member of this committee who can take the message to the Planning Commission.
Yeah. Joelle, you had something?
Yeah, the township brought bigger recycle things. Well, I know I pay for it, but it's like, all right, that doesn't help downcycling. And my other thing that gets me going is all the insecticides and chemical fertilizers. I mean, I can't walk in either direction with my dogs without being exposed. And I don't know if people don't get that it's eventually in your drinking water. It doesn't disappear. It's why do we want to kill the microorganisms? Just gets me going.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something to maybe a suggestion that the committee might entertain, is the other kind of green landscaping suggestions and requirements. I know there's a lot of interest in reducing mowing and providing pollinator-friendly habitats, especially in the parks and the land preservation efforts. And with cost cuts, there are big incentives to reduce mowing. So the timing on that is good.
I don't mind the mowing. If people mow, there'll be less weeds because they won't go to seed. But, I'm right, one building off of Jolly, between Okemos and the high school. And it's like, the new neighborhood, all the, the company that started that neighborhood, whoever they hire, I don't know. And then a couple of businesses down the other way. It's like, it's gross. And I'm sure it's not filtered out of the drinking water.
Yeah, well, that might certainly relate to the green building proposals. If you see anything out there from the other 1,500 local municipalities in Michigan that might provide a model, I know East Lansing's probably got something. Their ordinance may focus mostly on building, but I know there's a lot of interest all over the country for this type of what you're bringing up, Joelle. So thanks for
I
mentioning it.
don't even know what you'd call it.
Well,
No
it's-
chemical lawns, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ann Arbor has maybe some policies or preemptive policies or guidance on something like this.
Mhm.
Right. Maybe.
That might be a good starting place.
But I even think they were fertilizing or something at Hawk Island. So I don't even know if our parks are doing it. I mean, they don't realize it just contaminates all the wildlife. And
Well, it's kind of
Yeah.
a slow process. The reason they do what they do is largely economic and time. So it's-
economic to spray or spray and drop these fertilizer pellets. I don't see what's, just cross it off. There'd be less work.
right. I think there's expectation that no dandelions or whatever, but yeah, things are changing. So people call it green infrastructure. People call it ecological landscaping. They call it. Bill McConnell, who's on this committee, is also working with the Planning Commission on form-based codes, and he is optimistic that there may be some opportunities for green infrastructure and green priorities introduced into that form-based code discussion. But making that connection, that's one of the reasons we're all happy that Bill is on the Planning Commission, is because he can be a voice for some of these ideas. Anything else on the green building or the EV ready ordinance that you wanted to say, John?
No, I think Bill was kind of optimistic that this might be something we can get done, just because you know, it's not a huge burden for the developers to pay a little extra money to, you know, have a charger put in, especially for 50 spaces. That's not a big financial burden on somebody doing a big development.
So it's every 50 spaces for any commercial development, one EV charger.
Right.
With exceptions. I mean, if we're using East Lansing, I mean, there's certain exceptions that could be where it would be justifiable that it might not make sense. I'm not sure what those are, but
Makes me think, like, you know, even, you know, for instance, like with the PPA I've been thinking about, if you do end up doing like a bunch of carports, you have energy right there. I mean, that could be a really easy way to get a bunch of EV chargers, you know, installed all at once. Almost creating like a, you know, an EV way station at the township hall, you know, where charging can happen. Yeah, that's just got all sorts of ideas rattling around in my head from that. But yeah, that's the EV, that stuff is definitely, I think, super important to start to put in ordinances like that. Because that's, I think, the biggest hurdle for people is just this fear of, you know, not having the convenience of a gas station, you know, not knowing where there's chargers. But if it becomes something where it's like most commercial parking lots have them, and then, you know, municipality buildings have several, maybe, you know, things like that. I don't know, it sure seems like that would reduce some of those hurdles for a lot of people.
Especially in the parking lots where there's a potential for, the wiring is being run anyway.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Put in your pedestal with your charge cord and you're good to go.
Right.
In
Guys,
fact, the charging station itself is the least of the cost when you consider the overall wiring runs and the...
Right. The EV charger part's easy. Once you already have wires going and the power source there, getting the charger in, that's the least of it.
Off the shelf stuff for a few $100.
Right.
great. Anything else on that? Okay, well, if you have any additional comments, you can always forward them to any of the people on that Green Building Committee or the Environmental Commission. So John, Rose, Bill, Courtney, or myself. But it's a pretty exciting time right now. There's lots of possibilities. And I think there's readiness, support from the board. But sort of like the issue with home TV, packaging it and just allowing the collaboration to occur is part of the, or making it easy, greasing the wheels, so to speak, is helpful. And anywho, should we talk about the PPA, or what do you want to talk about next?
It's up to you guys.
Okay, with I guess just in general, there's renewed interest in putting together an RFP for a PPA with a little TLC and LOL.
I think you might have to translate for me.
The power purchase agreement sort of is one way so that you don't have to come up with a bunch of cash up front.
Right.
And there's a possibility that the budget for the solar panels will be cut next Tuesday or reduced substantially, as well as a couple other initiatives that, well, they have to cut about $1 million out of the budget.
Because we've just had less income. The
Right.
township just had less income with the COVID, whatever.
Right. The revenue, sales tax revenue sharing is a big part of our budget. So
Okay.
sales have gone down. This doesn't include a taxable value of homes and things like that, which potentially be in the future. But anyway, yeah, I think it's the revenue sharing that's the biggie.
Okay.
Anywho, this the PPA, which we've been discussing, has come up as one way that wouldn't require upfront cash, but it would be a longer term investment. And the idea of coming up with an RFP, our request for proposal, to contractors such as Rob's or others. Another contractor responded to our RFP with a PPA suggestion as well. So we have people who are out there and capable of potentially doing this type of thing. The challenge is that we have to come up with, the challenge and opportunity is it's a larger system typically to justify the expenses. Anybody else want to add anything to that, how we're framing that?
One thing I think that, because I do really like the idea, of what the original plan was of the township owning, some of the systems on site, like fire station stuff, and definitely understand with, budget cuts, things become tight and priorities start to really narrow down. But what I would think is not necessarily abandon the idea of owning some systems, where at least with the PPA investors that, I'm working with, they're open to buy back portions of systems. So, the fire station could move along as planned, and then it starts as a PPA, but then there could be a buyback, basically plan in place where then over time, once the budget starts to return to normal, it's there, the township can then slowly purchase it back, where then they own the project itself, just like originally planned, without having to put forward any, initial investment. And then there can be, options in there to where if it's not in the budget, then it just remains a PPA and you still get that clean energy, so there's some flexibility there. I think, where it can be kind of a hybrid where, portions of the system can end up being owned by Meridian if the, things work out that way. Mm-hmm. So it can kind of go both ways. So I think that's one good option, to not necessarily abandon all the plans that were had for owning some systems while still being able to make that jump forward without upfront costs. So I think that's a good option.
All right, that's a selling point if they don't have to do upfront costs when not getting their sales tax.
Right.
What the other thing we talked about was having a presentation at the next Environmental Commission meeting, maybe looking at around the country about successful programs. And I haven't made any headway on that. Do you have any more thoughts on that, anyone?
Yeah, I've been thinking a little about that, Leroy, because you remember Bob Chapman?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bob, after he left warm training, and then he was MIPO director for a while. He's actually been working on encouraging churches to do PPAs.
Oh,
And so I think personally, the next logical step is to have a presentation at the Environmental Commission meeting, a green themes presentation on PPAs, because we need to do a little, well, quite a bit of education probably. And it'd be better to have somebody who's not a in the industry or potential bidder. So Bob was, I think he's a good speaker, but also he's been kind of working with churches on this, and so he could give a 15-20-minute presentations on the basic concept.
that's awesome.
And things that the client, the building owner should be kind of thinking about, things to, the pros and cons. That's my kind of best thinking, is to have Bob do it if he's available. I kind of thought too about having somebody from MSU do a presentation, but then I kind of thought, their scale is so huge that I don't know if that would be so helpful. And Bob Chapman has more of a perspective of, he kind of helps people work their way through this.
Really?
Perfect.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Interfaith Power and Light has really been kind of leading the way. I mean, they've been great organization, and that, funny you say that, kind of read my mind, because lately I've actually been thinking that a PPA for an organization like Interfaith Power and Light is perfect. It doesn't necessarily, PPAs, I think, have always, people think of them as, oh, it's got to be 2 megawatts in one location, where why not split that up in 100 different locations? It still functions the same. And so for something like Interfaith Power and Light, where I know you have a lot of churches who haven't actually been able to take the next step towards renewable energy, but they support it, they're in the organization, it could be kind of like everybody who hasn't had a chance to get solar could all be a part of it. But I think there's a lot of potential there.
Hey, Leroy, if you think that's a good idea, I could check in with Bob to see if he might be available for our next Environmental Commission meeting.
That would be great, John, if you're willing.
Sure.
Be nice to see him again.
Yeah, if only on the screen.
John, I like the idea of what's important to think about with setting up a PPA, because in some respects, the technical parts of it, the installation parts of it are known and easy. And I think there might be a lot of people that have questions about things like maintenance and insurance, and who takes care of things, and how the billing all works, and how that connects with the utility. There's a whole bunch of practical questions on how this works, other than just simply installing some solar panels. So it'd be great to have somebody like Bob, who's experienced and could answer those questions, either up front or at the meeting.
Yeah.
Let me, the water treatment plant and the township buildings have been kind of thrown together in, some material that was sent to us by Rob and by Rob Rafson. Leroy, I guess it's a question for you to pursue with Derek. I'm kind of Rob could kind of probably confirm part of the challenge with this is that usually investors, the bigger the project, the better. That's really, I see you shaking your head.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's how they think.
Yeah. Because there's costs involved in just arranging things, and they just don't like to do small projects, which is why Bob Chapman got involved with this, because like you said, Rob, churches are typically smaller projects, and they're trying to help that along. But I guess I'm leading up to the whole issue of, could the water treatment plant and the township solicitation be done together? I'm guessing not, but that's a question that should probably still be asked. And then that I'm thinking, Leroy, you might want to ask Derek that. Actually, Rob, though, I've got a question, and this may be hard for you to answer. If we couldn't do a joint solicitation, I'm wondering if we could have the water treatment plant and the township do a solicitation at the same time. And so even though there would be two separate legal entities to deal with,
Sure.
you'd still have a lot of business in the same location. Does that,
Right.
would that be helpful, or?
I mean, I think there's multiple ways of going about doing it. Because I know, my contact with the investment group has said, because I've sort of brought up similar things as far as like, okay, we have, different rates, different entities here, how does that meld together into one cohesive PPA? And I mean, they've said it can be separate, but what I always sort of pictured was that within it, you have different sort of functions for each facility. So they operate under their own sort of criteria or rates, depending. But it's still enveloped within that one PPA, but it could be separate as well. So I think, obviously there's more sort of questions to be asked and things to discuss, but I think it could go either way. But I mean, it might be easier if it can be wrapped into one, if there's a way to do that, which, I mean, they seem to be pretty confident that you can have, flexible, different rates and schedules within that same document, so there's options. But yeah, just to speak on your other point, I mean, their criteria is like 1 megawatt. That's sort of like, I guess it's kind of hard to get them to come to the table if you're less than that. I mean, maybe if it's close, but that is definitely one of their big things, because they're used to doing, commercial industrial buildings and manufacturing facilities that do, 10, 15, 20 megawatts. And that's kind of the stuff they're used to. And so when I originally kind of brought this up, they're like, oh, so what do you think Meridian needs? Like 25 megawatts? I'm like, whoa, I don't know about that. Like, that is excessive, because that's the kind of numbers they're used to. I mean, I think the water treatment plant alone, once you get to a megawatt, you're still only offsetting about half of the use there. So there is capacity for it. Yeah. I think it can go both ways. That makes sense.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we've got some next steps here. Presentation at the June Environmental Commission meeting, and talking with Bob Chapman, developing and checking with Derek about an RFP, exploring further whether or not we could do this as a one project or would have to be separate.
Yeah, and with the water plant, is it basically joint ownership then with East Lansing?
It's East Lansing Meridian. There's a board that sort of oversees the group.
Okay.
But it's
and
a
so it's
separate-
almost a combination of the two, entities as far as Meridian and then East Lansing separately, and then it's like a shared property. That
it's a separate entity. I don't know.
it's completely on its own. Okay.
It's an authority.
Okay.
An authority.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But Derek Perry's on the board, right, Leroy? Or
Yep.
he was here last time so the Meridian Township has representation on the board, and Derek is probably still our representative, or maybe there's more than one representative from Meridian Township.
So, it may end up being easier then to have almost two PPAs then, if it's its own legal entity. But the investors can still just, in their head, they'll think of the total. If two PPAs are happening at once, they'll be happy with it as long as their total numbers all match up, then it's big enough. But I don't see why it can't be just two completely separate. And that might end up being easier than crafting a hybrid document. But I think that both those avenues could be explored.
Great. Let's see here. Anything else on that subject? Anything else you want to talk about?
Leroy, do you know what's going to happen with the Meridian Township building and the HVAC improvements? Do those go ahead regardless of the budget problems, or?
Yeah, those are underway right now. In fact, there's no heat or cooling in the building right now.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Just in time for
Which
summer.
building is that?
The main municipal building?
Oh, where you have your offices?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the public safety is on the other, is to the north, and
Okay.
the municipal buildings to the south, right across from the farmer's market. With
Leroy,
all,
do we have any idea how much? I mean, whatever they do is going to be more efficient than what we've got now. You know, probably quite a bit more efficient. It'd be nice at some point to kind of get a sense for, because you know our 100% plan counts on 30% electric savings. I think we're going to make some significant progress with this HVAC work. Do we have any sense for how many kilowatt hours we might save?
that's a great question. I have not been involved directly with the negotiation. I know I have expressed a couple of times that there is strong interest in this 30% reduction, and that we'd like to, you know, maximize the energy savings associated with us, as well as the incentives from consumers. But there's several companies sort of handling the various aspects of this, and Derek is sort of the main point person. But yes, that is proceeding, and I can try and I'll see if I can get some more information on that, because that's a really good point.
Because that could be significant reduction, you know, which definitely, if, you know, PPA discussions continue, that's definitely going to change the analysis as far as what's needed. But I'd like to think that those HVAC contractors should have at least a sense of the savings if they look at the units that were there versus what's there now. I'm assuming that was definitely part of the equation, you know, when moving forward with it. So, I feel like that information's got to exist. Depend on who has it. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'll check into that. Kind of related to that, we are still interested in moving forward on some of these other conservation improvements, lighting retrofits, and things like that. So I need to kind of touch base on that process. Things have kind of slowed way down the last month or so, but hopefully, I appreciate you guys keeping me on task and all the work that you've done individually. Anything else we want to talk about today?
I mean, I'll oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was curious, Rob. I hadn't heard the latest on what's happening with solar installations and your business. I know
yeah,
that emails, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
I haven't read them all.
just open back up. So, I mean, at least from Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, you know, we kind of the last month have been taking a lot of our guidance, you know, from them. Just in our own analysis of it, but yeah, we're back to installations Monday. You know, and doing all the social distancing, and I have all the guys wearing masks and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every solar contractor now is back up and running.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it depends on, you know, we'll see how quickly the building departments, and electrical departments, and utilities do their end of things. Which sometimes can always be a little slow. So I'm hoping there isn't too much of a backlog, which could then kind of slow things down.
The permits and stuff.
Right. In their inspections and permits, and, you know, if they have this 2-month backlog of other projects they have to get to first before taking new things on. We'll see how it works. We're just sort of getting back to it. So in in a couple weeks, I mean, by our next meeting, I'll probably have a better sense of how things are actually
Oh,
functioning.
Yeah. So nobody's backed down or anything. So that's good.
No, I mean, honestly, solar, there's been, not maybe as much interest maybe as we were expecting, especially with, there's still net metering in place for consumers, which unless those Senate bills pass it, that's going to close, which Senate bills are on hold now, which those were very exciting when they were coming through. But there's still interest. I mean, there's still people signing up,
That's great.
Yeah, so it's solar feels a little insulated from this in a way, but we'll see. We'll see. We've retained everybody and didn't lay anyone off or anything. So
Yeah. Well, you were down a month then, or 2 months?
about 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So we had the guys do some like online electrical and solar training courses just to beef up their knowledge, and then they could punch in on their cell phones to get some hours in while they're learning stuff, so they can at least make something during this time.
Yeah. But my understanding was you had just hired some new people too.
Yeah, it was bad timing for us. We just brought on a whole new team and just got done training, and then literally the next week is when the shutdown, or 2 weeks maybe. But
Yeah.
we're very blessed. We've been lucky enough to be very sort of smart over the last few years. So we were able to pay our guys bonuses every week to keep them their rents paid and everything. Even if they couldn't do the course, or the online course ran out, we provided bonuses for people to make sure everybody was doing fine. And then we have another 4 people ready to be brought on that I'm hoping with any commercial project really, that they'll come on, and we've gotten actually some movement now on the commercial side of things again. That seems to be waking back up a little bit.
Cool.
Just recently. So I'll have to keep you guys posted on that, but there might be some movement on some of those other bigger projects too. So.
Cool. That's good.
Yeah. So things seem to be wanting to get back in the right direction. We'll see.
Great. Okay. And when should we meet next? Do you want to meet in a month?
Whatever works for you guys.
So that
So
would
like
be
the
11th
11th or 18th. Yeah, 11th or 18th.
Any preferences?
18th.
18th for me.
Sounds good.
18th.
Fine.
Okay.
Okay. June 18th. Rob, thank you for reminding me about the meeting today.
No, of course. No problem.
And feel free to do that in the future as well.
Okay. I will.
Is
I don't
the
mind.
18th? Is that 11 o'clock on the 18th?
Yeah.
Does that work for
Okay.
people?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. Let's see. Anything else for the good of the whole?
Not too much to report on.
I just want to mention that the sunshine is still coming down.
It's not coming down here right
Yeah,
now.
not here.
Where's your guitar song? Where's your
Uh,
Here Comes the Sun song?
oh, yeah. I wish I could play that song. That's a little beyond my ability.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Blue
Anywho.
sky.
Yeah, there's a lot of solar out here in Rhode Island. They also have a plastic bag ban, which is kind of cool in North Kingstown.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be lovely?
So,
Really, that's cool.
anything else? Tune-
Safe travels when you get home. I assume you're driving.
Yep. Tune into the solar stories tonight at 7 o'clock since you got your Zoom working, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all have a great week.
Thanks. You do the
Thank
same.
you.
Travel safe.
Bye.
Great to see everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
All
everybody.
right. Take care.
All right. See ya. I'll figure out how to log out here.